Good morning, and welcome to CSL Denver, a place, a space, and a face of love. A spiritual community practicing ancient wisdom and utilizing a divine law, as Bill said, that is always in effect, always ready, always waiting for you to engage. Now, today, I want to say first and foremost to all the Muslim practitioners that are here, that are listening, that I want to say Ramadan Mubarak. Yesterday was the start of the month-long fast for Ramadan. And it's a great practice to get centered and just so many things. And so we want to wish them a happy journey on the journey of Ramadan. And so this month, our theme is the flow of life, the flow of life. And not too different from the metaphor, if you will, that Susan gave us on growing and getting our garden together. That metaphor with sailing and navigating is very close, because you have to stop, look, and listen in all both of them. You have to be aware of what's going on. And so before we get started, I'd like to just give a little short prayer to get us started, to get us centered so that we are really, really ready for this journey. So if it's comfortable, close your eyes, take a deep breath. Loving Spirit, we come before you today open and receptive to your wisdom. We set sail on the vast ocean of life, trusting that you are the wind in our sails. Guide us as we seek to understand the flow of life, to trust in the divine order, and navigate each moment in faith, courage, and wisdom. May our hearts be filled with grace and adventure as we align with the sacred current of life. And so it is, amen. And so it is, amen. And so, life is often compared to a river or ocean that we have to navigate, right? Because, as they say, a ship was not made to stay on the port. It was made to set sail. And so often we can become very afraid or very unsure of how to navigate the waters. But today we want to take a deep dive and really look at what that means, what that entails, how we can engage it, and understand that the winds and the tides and the currents and all of that are elements for a gracious and joyous journey. As Bill said earlier, we live in a place of constant change. And if you've been attuned to what's been going on around you lately, I'm sure you're saying to yourself, boy, I'm about sick of change right now. Because it's change. Before you can get your head around one change, another one is happening, and you haven't fully understood the first one. But that's this thing called life, right? That's what we have to navigate. That's what we have to be able to stop, look, and listen and feel our way into how we navigate, how we move forward. Because we know, if any of you have ever been on a cruise, or if you took up sailing, or if you went to summer camp and was in a canoe or a rowboat, when the wind changes, it comes a little bit harder to row that boat or steer that boat. If the current changes, it takes a little bit more to get that thing back online. And that's what we're faced with every day. However, we don't need to struggle. We don't need to struggle. I took sailing lessons, a long time ago. I had this idea of sailing down the coast of Florida. And I'm also a certified scuba diver. So I was going to sail down the coast. Now, make sure that the shoreline was like right there. I wasn't going to get too far out there. But I had this idea of being able to enjoy all the elements of the water, the wind. But I became afraid. I was afraid that with all my training and all the stuff that I knew, that I wouldn't know what to do when the time came. I doubted myself. But when you're navigating the waters of life, or when you're in the boat navigating the ocean, one thing my instructor said, you have to rely on the training or don't take the training. We do you have to rely on it. And when we're able to do that, then we can become one with the journey. We can become one with the divine essence of all there is and move, as we've heard so often, easily and effortlessly. Now, question, is it easier to swim or float upstream or downstream? That's a question, because that is the question of today. Are we swimming upstream against all of the change and stuff that's going on? Or are we going with the current? Now, going with the current may not necessarily mean that you agree with the current. Let's be clear, but it is most definitely a way to move forward and be safe. If anybody, and I know we're here in Colorado, so you know, white water rafting is and kayaking, all those things in the water are very common. And if you've ever been in a white water trip, you know, without a shadow of a doubt, I am not going to go against the stream of this river coming off these mountains. So I have to stop, look, listen, and relax into that flow and just kind of move gently to navigate the waters. Because when you're on top of the water, you don't know if there's a boulder underneath or if it's deep water or if there's some sand and shallow shore right there. So you have to be ready. You have to trust the instructor. The instructor tell you, look, don't start getting panicky when the water get rough, because it's going to get rough. You have to relax and lean into the flow. Lean into the flow. Because if you don't, you're going to capsize. And now you're going to find yourself in cold water, which is even worse than the current. So as we begin to do that, we think about, what does it mean to engage the flow? How do I trust the flow? There's a Mackay, and I have trouble with his name, but the statement he made, Jasinski. Now just say that once and you'll be in trouble. I can't, but this is the father of the idea of the flow state. He was a professor at the University of Chicago. He was a professor at University of Claremont. And so when you hear people talking about the flow state, this is the person who came up with that. And he says, in flow, we lose ourselves and find ourselves at the same time. It's a paradoxical state where our individuality merges with the activity, and we experience a sense of oneness with the universe. Now, that's a lot of words, but basically what he's saying, we've heard it sometime on a commercial when they were talking about basketball. They said, you have to make the basket, you have to be the ball. You have to be the thing. And when we're able to do that, it becomes effortlessly. When Michael Jordan was doing his thing, and the other night, if you're basketball fans, Steve Curry, he shot 56 points in one game. I mean, if you ask him, or when they ask him, you know, what happens? He says, I get in a flow, I get in a zone. The basket looks 100 feet wide. The court looks like it's 2 steps long, and I just go with the flow. He navigates. And when it's not that way, he passes to his prayer. That represents this idea of we have to get into this motion of being aware of our surroundings and know where we are, know what we're doing. Now, one thing we know about sailing, if any of you have been on a cruise, you know this precisely. Because when you bought the ticket to go on the cruise, it said this cruise is going to Cozumel. This cruise is going to the Grand Caymans or wherever it's going. But you know the destination of where you're going. You're just not out there in the ocean frolicking. You have a clear destination. And for us to navigate the flow of life, we have to have a navigation point. We have to know what our destination is. Now, without a destination, as the saying goes, if you don't know where you're going, you'll wind up anywhere. And it may not be conducive or conductive for what you're trying to do in life. So the first thing that we have to do when we begin to navigate the life, we have to find out, what's my purpose? What's my destination? What am I trying to do here? Or the proverbial question that's been since time, why am I here? Why am I here? Why am I on this journey? Because once we're clear about that, the rest, if you can find a how, you can conquer any why. But if you got a how of how you're going to tap into your thing, who you are, where you're going, then we begin to move. Now, I always wondered, and when I was taking my sailing class, it became very clear that ancient sailors, they had a compass, but before that compass was set up, they guided themselves by the stars. Now, if you can imagine, right now we got a new moon pretty much. It's not going to be an extra life. You can get somewhere and look at the stars on a full sky and figure out, how am I going to navigate from Denver to Chicago? Boy, that's a tough charge. That's a tough charge. You have to know your stuff. And that's what we have to do if we're going to navigate life. We have to know our stuff. This is my new mantra for 2025. Life is not a spectator sport. Not a spectator sport. You can't sit in the stands and cheer because that won't work in this game, this navigational point. You have to be involved, and once you get involved, the rest happens. The rest happens. Ernest Holmes says this in relationship to having a compass of where you're going. We have within us a power that is greater than anything we shall ever contact in the outer. A power that can overcome every obstacle in our life and set us safe, satisfied, and at peace, healed and prosperous in a new light, in a new life. That's when we got a compass and we know where we're going, this is what happens. We can get to any point that we want to. Any point. There's Prema Raha said this: on this journey of life, there is a compass, the thirst to be fulfilled. We have been given this compass. It is already ours. We have been given this thirst in life so that we can seek out a way to quench it. And the compass points the way and points the way and points the way. It points within to our heart, to where clarity and joy resides, and to where the destination leads. We need to have a journey in life. if some of you, now I may be dating myself, but growing up, they used to have these long matinees with Jason and the Argonauts and Hercules and all these epic adventures. On every one of them, there was a journey. And they had to conquer and overcome all kinds of trials and tribulations. And when they found themselves at the destination, they were a different person that set out on the sail. These are all the things we have to consider when we're navigating life, because it's not a straight line. And one thing we have to remember, one of the first things when we went out on the open water, the instructor said, now I want you to understand very clearly the 1 in 60 rule. What's the 1 in 60 rule? For every 1 degree you are off course, you're going to be 60 off. So for every 1 degree you're off, every 60 miles you go, you're 1 mile off your course. So now just start multiplying that. If you go 2, 3, and if you're going a long distance, imagine sailing from Europe to the islands. That's a long way. And if you're off by a degree, you'll wind up in a place and call it something that it's not. And I'll just leave that the way it is. But if you got your point right, you'll end up at least within a mile or 2 miles if you're only off a little bit. But the thing is to be on point. If you're not, and we're looking at nautical miles. See, here's the beauty of this place we live in. A nautical mile is 1.15, or to do it the easy way, it's 0.15 of a regular mile. So when you get a mile, for a nautical mile, you got to go 0.15 more for them to be equal because of the curvature of the planet. And if you don't know these little tools, these little tricks when you're navigating life, you're going to end up somewhere where you don't want to be. Now, don't nobody have to shame the devil today, but if you've ever been off course, raise your hand. I've been off course. I've been off course, and I was on the radio. I was calling everybody I could, trying to get some help. But the divine said, like we just read, you got a compass within you. You got a place in your heart. You got an understanding of who you are. You got to tap into it. You got to set a destination or find your destination or understand what your purpose is. Because if you're being controlled by the ocean and the winds and the currents, you can forget wherever you're trying to go. You just better hope you don't sink. Because you have no way of navigating. You have no way of moving beyond this. And the way to do that is there are many tools and keys of sailing. But the two that I like the most is alignment and harmony. When you're sailing with a real sailboat, with a sail, you have to have that sail in alignment with the wind, or you're going to be dead in the water. And if you've ever watched some of these sailing races that they have, whether it's individual or with the crew, they are in harmony with that boat, the sail, the water, and each other. To see it is an amazing sight. To see the harmony and the alignment they get, and they get that boat. That boat is on just the heel of itself, and it's just slicing through the water with ease. Alignment and harmony. That's all those are two primary ones that they're looking at. And when we can do that with our own lives, then we can navigate all storms. We can navigate all storms. And so I want to give us 3 things on how to do that, on how to navigate in this water and keep moving. Now, the first thing that we want to know and understand and buy into is you have to set sail. You gotta get engaged in life. As we said, not a spectator sport. You can't navigate life if you ain't in life. You have to be in it, and you have to know what your destination is. Doesn't mean you can't change the destination. Because I've changed. I started out in one career, moved to another career, started out in one city, moved to another city. I was satisfied with all of them, but I had to know where to begin at first. So you have to set a destination. And we got to remember, as I said earlier, a ship was made to sail. It was not made to, sit in dry dock or just be anchored up to the pier and never go anywhere. The boats are made to sail. You are made to have a journey of life. We are made to have a journey of life. So why not embark on the journey? Why not embark on the journey? There's a statement by FDR that says this. Franklin Delano Roosevelt, he says, to reach a port, we must set sail. Sail, not tied at anchor. Sail, not drift. Again, no spectators. You got to get in this thing if you want to enjoy this thing. Because how many times have we seen people who appear to have less everything than us? Less money, less talent, less intelligence, or anything else you can come up with that indicates a person is successful. And you look at them and you say, I ain't got that. I got all this other stuff, but I don't have that. I don't have the joy of the journey. I don't have the ability to navigate these waters and these storms with a smile. What do they know that we don't know? And I would submit that they're not afraid to launch out into the water. They're not afraid to take a chance. They're not afraid to go against what everybody is saying and follow what's in their heart, follow their compass. So the first thing we have to do is set course. The first thing we have to do is set a course. The second thing we have to do is you have to learn to adjust your sails and learn to understand and read your instruments. How many times have you stepped into a situation and said, well, this don't feel comfortable. But your logical mind says, just keep going. You'll be all right. But everything in your being tells you this is not something for me. I shouldn't be here. We have to learn to read that instrument. Our emotions, our feelings, our intuition. We have to learn to read them and understand that they're what help us navigate. They let us know when the wind is coming from the north or from the south. So when we're able to learn to read our instrument, then we can trim our sail to adjust to the wind. Do I need it on a beam reach where it's all the way out and the wind is fully behind me and I'm just booking it? Or it's coming against me and I need to trim it in a little bit so that I just get right on that heel? These are things that we have to do. Now, we've seen people, and sometimes it's been me, who decide not to do that. There's a consequence. There's a cost for that. And that is we have free will. You can make a choice not to trim your sail, not to, look at your gauges. Nobody in this room or online, or might see this later, nobody is going to look at the gauge, the instruments on their car that says the gas tank is on E and keep going. It's going to stop you two ways. It's going to stop because it's going to run out of gas and you're going to look at it and say, oh, I'm stopped. You have to understand and learn to read and follow those gauges. They're all around us. But when we're centered in our space, when we have our compass, our heart aligned, we're good. We're good. Aristotle Onassis said this: we must free ourselves of the hope that the sea will ever rest. We must learn to sail in high winds. You got to learn to trim the sails, read the navigations, because ocean ain't going to change. The ocean going to be the ocean. Or life is going to be life, using that metaphor. So we better figure it out. We better figure it out. And there's a statement in Romans 5, verse 3 through 5, that says something to the mind. It reminds us that hardships produce perseverance and character and unwavering hope so that we can make it through. Any athlete will tell you, for me to be to the top of my game, sometimes it hurts. Sometimes it hurts to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning and go to the gym. Sometimes it really hurts to be in a game and then I have to go sit in a tub of ice. If you've never done that, try it once. Just take some ice and dump it in your bathtub, put a little water in it, and don't just stick your foot in it. Immerse yourself. Put your whole body in that tub and you'll see. And it won't be long, I guarantee you, that you have to get in there and go through these trimming the sails and deal with this so that you can go through the adversity to understand what life is about. It's just navigating the waters. That's all we're doing. You don't want to not prepare for a storm when you know storms are coming every day. The last thing on that is that we want to remind ourselves that the tools that we've been given, insight, meditation, prayer, contemplation, a walk in nature, is how we learn to read our instruments. Or better yet, this instrument called me. It's a fabulous instrument. Got all kinds of things going on inside that we don't even know about. And one part of it recognizes and understands the signs that's coming from another part that says, oh, he's running. I need to get some more oxygen. So I need to beat a little faster. I need to expand my lungs a little more. And when that dies down, we don't use that sense anymore. Navigating life. And so the last thing that we have to do after we've set a course, we've learned to trim our sails and rely on our instruments. Here's something that we really need to understand, not now, but right now. And that is, we have to learn sometimes how to anchor in the storm. You have to anchor in, because if you don't, if your boat is not sturdy enough, it'll just tip over. But if you can anchor, and there's certain ways to anchor in a storm. You put an anchor in the front and an anchor in the back. Now, all of them are, at the mercy of the winds. But to be stable so that you don't get totally off course, you set an anchor in the front and an anchor in the back, and you try to ride it out. Because if not, the wind is going to blow you so far off course. We already know about the 1 in 60 rule. If that wind blows you off course, it is really by the grace of God that you may find your way back. So we have to learn to do that. In Psalms 46:1, it says, God is our refuge and strength, an ever-present help in trouble. So that's why we anchor into the divine. We anchor into that idea that allows us to be steady. Because, we know for sure there's probably not a person in here that has not gone through at least 5 storms. They didn't get the grade they wanted. The relationship broke up. They lost a loved one. They got fired from a job. Whatever it is, there are storms are brewing. So we got to be ready. We got to learn how to sometimes just anchor into the divine and allow that thing to move through us. Eckhart Tolle says this: Wisdom comes when one is able to be still. Just look, just listen. Nothing else is needed. Stillness, looking, and listening activates the non-conceptual intelligence that nestles within you. Let stillness direct your words and your actions. That's what happens when you anchor down. You allow that to move you, to hold you, to set you on a course. And so that's what we need to do. That's what we have to do if we're going to navigate these waters called now. And if you think they're rough now, but put your life jacket on and just get everything ready. Because all signs, I'm looking at all my instruments, and it indicates that the storm is just starting. Now we can play, as if it ain't, and not be prepared. Because I'd rather be prepared and not have an opportunity than to have an opportunity and not be prepared. So we want to prepare. We want to be ready because we know storms are coming. And sometimes they pop out of nowhere, but we are assured that if we anchor into our hearts, find our compass, learn to use our tools of trimming the sail and looking at the compass and the stars and the maps and all those things, that we will be able to get to our destination safely, joyously, and find new land and new life. So I want to close with this. As we navigate the flow of life, may we be steadfast captains of our ship, charting courses with purpose, adjusting our sails with wisdom, anchoring in faith during storms, and trusting our navigation every step of the way. The journey isn't always easy, but with God as our guide, we will always find safe harbor. And so it is. So it is. And so as we go into this week, we always have some call to actions, and we probably need 1,000 call to actions as this storm comes to brewing. But the first thing is this week, that should be not but that this week we look at your life and see where you can release control and trust the divine flow. Where can you release control and trust the flow? And then spend some time alone this week to contemplate your purpose so you can move with clarity towards your dreams. Two simple things, but without them, we're going to be lost at sea. Nobody wants to be like the SSS Minnow, if you remember what Gilligan's Island. Nobody wants to be there. So as we do that this week, there's this affirmation that we want to use to anchor all of this in. Oh, and that got messed up, didn't it? Oh, it's not too big. It says, I trust in the flow that carries me forward, and I move with faith, peace, and joy. And I'll fix that before we move out. So with that, let us go into prayer. Almighty Mother, Father God, that two aspects of life that causes the winds to blow and causes the waters to be still. That intelligent essence that rests deep within our heart, that immerses us in a way of life that allows us to see beyond the horizon. And as we set sail on this journey called life, we allow God, the living spirit, to be our guide, to uplift us, to hold us, to mold us, and to move us in a direction that is clear on a path that is straight, with the wisdom and understanding that allows us to weather all storms. And so I know that right here, right now, that each and every one of us and all of those who may be listening now or listening later, we are preparing ourselves for the journey. That we're allowing all of the elements of the universe to get in alignment, to be harmonized for smooth sailing. And when a storm comes, and they will come, we will be prepared. We will be ready. And we rest on that because we have done our work. We've done the prayers. We've done the meditation. We've contemplated. We've journeyed. We've walked in nature. We've gotten in tune with the infinite. And it is in that state that we can live life as captains of our ship. And so it is in that idea of captaining our ship that I give thanks, that I have the ability, the knowledge, the wisdom, the understanding, and the effort that's required to do it. And so I release it, I let it go. I know that it is absolutely so and that it is happening right now. And so it is. Amen.